Welcome to this video on how to configure the Filr Appliance for net folders going against OES servers. When you're in the administration console, you have an option for net folders and net folder servers down here. But most probably the first thing I'd do is just pop into Proxy identities and set up a proxy identity for the OES server here. If you've only got one server, then this isn't really worth doing, but if you've got multiple servers, you can store the user and password here just once rather than having to specify it on multiple servers, so that when the password changes, you only have to change it once rather than multiple times. I've already got a proxy here for my Windows servers, but let's just add a new proxy for my OES servers. Let's call it OES proxy. Proxy name. I've created a user on the OES system called Filr Proxy. This user that has rights to the file system. This really needs to have full rights to the file system, the user. Let's just type in the password and click OK. What we now need to do is, if we go into net folder servers, you'll see that I've got a net folder server there with an exclamation mark next to it. That's my OES server. That's automatically created when we imported our LDAP users based on what their home directory was set at. So I just need to go in and finish the configuration on that. So if I click on that, the server type is going to be Open Enterprise Server. Server path is populated. The authentication, I could populate this here should I wish to, but in this case I'm going to use that proxy user that I specified earlier. So there's my OES proxy. I'll just do a test on the connection. That's connecting happily enough. If we just go on to synchronization schedule, you'll see here that we can periodically go through the file system, pick up any changes. Typically you do this maybe once a day. Depending on how long it takes, it may be once a week that you do it. I'm just going to set this off in the evening at let's say midnight or 11 o'clock there, just so it happens out of working hours, so my users won't get impacted by that. If you click on synchronization options, we've got some options here. The option to index the content of the files in the net folders allows me to not just index file names and that sort of thing, but also the actual text within files. And this can be PDF files, Word documents, Excel documents, PowerPoints, and so on. So if I want to find something that's actually contained within a document, I can. Obviously the overhead on that, the indexer has more processing, there's more disk space being used up. So I'd only really enable that if you want to use it. I recommend that you leave just-in-time synchronization enabled, and leave the allow desktop app to trigger initial folder sync enabled as well. Click OK, and that's configured that for us. What we now need to do is configure the server that we've got network shares on. So to do that, you need to click on Add. Give this a name. This can be anything. The users aren't going to see this. Server type is going to be Open Enterprise Server. Server path is going to be /London, I think. Authentication, I could specify the username and password, but I'm going to use that proxy identity I created earlier and just do a test connection. I think I've just London share rather than shares. There we go. And then synchronization schedule, again, we'll enable that. I'll do it every day, and this time I'll kick this one off at 10 o'clock, just to stagger it from the other sync. If I go to synchronization options, you'll notice that the JITs is not enabled by default. We ideally want to enable that one, and obviously same comments around index if you want to do full content indexing or not, but just be aware that of the consequences if you enable that. Click OK on there. So we now have a server for our London shares set up. What I next need to do is enable the net folders. So here I just come into net folders. These are the ones that are on the Windows servers at the moment, so let's just add, type in the name. This is something the user is going to be seeing, so we'll call this London sales. Net folder is in this case going to be London sales, so we'll keep that. Relative path is in a direction called file/sales. I can test that connection. That's working, it can find that directory. I then have options whether to override the index content setting and the just-in-time setting. In this case I'll just use what's on the net folder. As far as the rights are concerned, here I typically do all internal users as having access to the server here. You may think that's a bit strange, but what we're doing is saying that all users have the possibility of seeing that if the file system lets them. So if I don't have rights to this directory, even though here it says I can see it, we pass the responsibility off, in this case to the NSS volume, and if I haven't got rights to see that directory, I'm not even going to know it exists there. The only time I want to add additional users in here or items in here is if I want to have different share settings. So for instance, I can say that our Redgrave user can share with internal users should I want them to, but other users don't have that capability. But I could say that they're allowed to share with external users, for instance, should I internal and external users should I wish. So synchronization schedule, again I'll just use what's set on the net folder server. And data sync, we've got some options here. Can this be used by access from the user's desktop? And some options for that. Typically you most probably want to set that to be yes. Click OK, and I get prompted, do I want to sync the net folder now? If I just say OK. If I click on that little circle, I'll see that file count come up and how that sync is going. I don't have to leave this open at all, I can be doing other things there. Useful thing here is that it can tell you how long that synchronization takes, so good indication of whether you need to run at weekend or only or every day. Let's just add in another folder for London Finance. And that again is London share. Relative path is files/finance. Let's just test that. That's working okay. Again, the settings there, the rights, I'll say all internal users have, they can only view this, they can't share anything from there. And again, yeah, obviously finance is a secured environment, so maybe it's only the finance group who actually have rights, but anyone they won't even see this share if they haven't got rights to it in the filer system. Synchronization schedule, I'll use what's on the net folder in this instance. You can obviously override it should you wish. And data sync, this time, you know, high value target of finance. I don't really want people taking that offline, so I can remove that from being downloaded to the desktop, and I can sync the folder there. So hopefully this is giving you an idea of how to set up net folders and shared areas within Filr against OES servers. Thank you for listening.